The last time I recorded a things that I've learned in however many years episode for my birthday, I was 25 turning 26. And my Uncle Pete listened to the podcast episode and told me that I swore more than the boys on his rugby team back when he played in university. So we're going to try to keep this episode a little bit more clean than we did when I was turning 26. But on today's episode of the No Bullshit Manifestation Show, I am officially 28 years old. I'm recording this on my last day of being 27, but y'all will hear it on my second day of being 28. And I am going to be sharing with you 28 things that I have learned over the past 28 years of my life. And it is so crazy to say that because I officially feel like a big kid. But if you want to learn some of the lessons that I have learned along my way, then this is the podcast episode for you.
What's up, and welcome to the No Bullshit Manifestation Show, the podcast that demystifies all of the nonsense that surrounds manifestation and gives you the tools that you need to create your happiest, healthiest, and wealthiest life. I'm your host, Kat Kozad, manifestation expert and life coach, and I am so happy that you're here. Let's fucking do this thing.
What's up, friends? Like I said in the intro to the podcast, yesterday was my birthday. Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, honestly, to a lot of my listeners. I have connected with so many of you recently over on Instagram, and y'all, we got a lot of Aquariuses that listen to this podcast, so that's fun. So if it's your birthday or if it's your birthday this month, happy birthday to you as well. We're going to be talking about 28 things that I have learned over the past 28 years of my life. And I wish I could go deep into every single one of these, but we would literally be here all day long because we're no longer looking at like 20 things or like 10 things. We're looking at 28 things because your girl is 28 years old. So with that being said, let's get into this. First one is that it's not so much the action that matters, but the energy behind the action. So this is hands down one of the biggest things that I've learned in the past 4.5 years since incorporating intentional manifestation into my life. Two people could be doing the same exact action, but the energy behind those two people's actions, if they're completely different, they will get completely different results. This is why oftentimes you see people in business doing the same exact thing, but getting very different results. It's because of the energy, the mindset, the embodiment behind that action. This applies to relationships. This applies to literally everything. So understand that it's not so much the action that you take, but the energy behind that action. And if that action can be coming from the energy of abundance and opportunity and choice versus fear, scarcity, and lack, then you're going to get more of what you want. Number 2 is that getting 1% better daily is the key. So I don't know how many of y'all have read the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you haven't read it, I highly, highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite books that I've read to develop really powerful habits. And inside of the book, he has this chart called the Power of Tiny Gains chart. And it essentially shows you what getting 1% better every day over the span of a year will do for you versus getting 1% worse every single day. So essentially getting 1% better every single day, by the end of the year, you will be almost 38% better than you were before. Whereas if you get 1% worse, then you are experiencing a decrease of 0.03% over the year, which may not sound like that much, but ultimately when you are getting 1% better every single day, you may not feel a ton of shift and change with it at first, but that little compound interest ultimately creates exponential return. So you getting 1% better every single day is so powerful. This has been my rule for myself since starting my business, since starting my intentional manifestation journey. Is like, even on those days when I do not want to show up for myself or I do not want to show up for my business, my rule is 1%. I always am doing at least 1%. I'm always aiming to be 1% better because that over the grand scheme of things, over the long term, creates exponential return. And once you're in that place, you're experiencing so much abundance
and you can continue to get 1% better. Just have even more showing up in your life. So getting 1% better every single day, whether that be in your relationships, your communication, your connection to yourself, your business, your finances, what you do for work, whatever it may be, 1% is the key. It doesn't have to be massive steps because a lot of times that's not sustainable for a lot of people. But getting 1% better every single day, that is so sustainable. Third thing that I've learned is that manifesting the life of your dreams will require you to cut the fat on the things that don't support your dreams. So what I mean by cut the fat is like release old self narratives, release old friends, release old habits. Huge one for me, and I know y'all have heard me talk about this on the podcast, is eliminating habits like drinking alcohol. That was literally the biggest fat cutting exercise I could have ever done for myself. And I'm not just talking about like fat on the body. I'm talking about like fat in your life, like shit that is there that is hanging out that doesn't necessarily need to be there. For me, drinking alcohol, I had a challenging relationship with alcohol when I was still in this place of like not turning inwards and doing any of the inner work. But once I started doing inner work, I started to really minimize my relationship with alcohol. But when I was still drinking and doing the inner work, being on my manifestation journey, running my business, whatnot, I just got to this point where I was like, I am literally like teaching people and embodying this energy of like, be the best version of yourself. And this doesn't make me the best version of myself. And once I eliminated it, I finally was given the opportunity to be the best version of myself. And so this isn't an ad to quit drinking, do whatever you want, but look at those things in your life that like are fatty. And not like, I'm not fat shaming here, but like the things in your life that do not serve and support you, eliminating those things will make your life so much better and make manifesting the life of your dreams so much easier. Fourth thing that I have learned is that discipline equals freedom and is actually the greatest act of self-love. So growing up, I have never been disciplined by my parents. This is something that I love to like talk to my friends about. This is something that like when new people meet me, they're like, oh my gosh, you're so driven. You're so this, you're so that. Like your parents, were they strict on you growing up? No, literally, I've never been disciplined in my entire life. I've never been told no. I've never been told like that I have rules. I have never been disciplined. So I was always given this model of like what discipline looked like from other people. And traditionally, especially in our society, I think that discipline comes along with a negative connotation of like being hard or being harsh or there being some sort of like fear or scarcity based in it. And so when I first started disciplining myself, like in high school, it was typically to punish myself. I was punishing myself to try and get the result that I wanted. And while that worked for a short period of time, I ultimately grew resentful towards the things that I was disciplining myself within. So for example, at that time, I really disciplined myself in the way that I was eating and the way that I was exercising. And ultimately, because I was disciplining myself from this energy of punishment, I grew resentful towards both of those things and like swung to the opposite end of the spectrum where I didn't care what I was putting in my body and I like refused to exercise. So recognizing, again, this kind of ties into one, that it's not so much the action, it's the energy behind the action. But when you can reframe discipline to be what leads you to freedom, and the greatest act of self-love, the greatest act of you showing up and showing yourself that you love yourself, then discipline takes on a completely different energy and helps move you towards what it is that you actually want. So that's been one of my biggest lessons over the past 28 years, but especially the past like 3 to 4 years, is discipline is a great thing, y'all. So with that being said, fifth thing that I've learned is that life is a game. Literally, life is a game and you can choose to win. That may take some discipline, but that also requires you to look at life in a way that like nothing's that serious. Nothing's that serious. Like at the end of the day, we are all creating meaning completely different meanings for our lives. And when you can see life as a game, and a game that you get to win, a game that you are the main character of, it becomes so damn fun. Which leads us into 6, which is that practically everything in life is a choice. And I know that may trigger some of you because it may not feel like some of the things that you are going through feel like a choice, but practically everything in life is a choice. A lot of the times we think we're a victim to something when in reality we're a volunteer. And when you can recognize that you're actually the volunteer, then you have the opportunity to choose something different. You have the power. You are the powerful creator of your reality. So choose what serves and supports you. 7th thing that I've learned is that you can still be scared and have doubts before pursuing the life that you want to live and pursue it anyways. This is one of the biggest things that I've seen, especially in the past few years with personal development and manifestation, that people like hound on, is that like you need to eliminate your limiting beliefs and you need to take care of these traumas before you can do X, Y, and Z. Literally not true. People are just marketing to you in that way. You can still go and pursue the life that you want to live while having limiting beliefs and while being scared and while having doubts. Because the truth of the matter is that when you start to do that, those limiting beliefs are going to make themselves known to you so much clearer, so much louder than if you were to try to figure out what all of those limiting beliefs were prior to actually starting the pursuit of whatever it is that you want. That's what I've done over the past 4.5 years since starting my intentional manifestation journey. I've never sat around and like looked at my limiting beliefs in the way of like, okay, like what are my limiting beliefs? It's been like, okay, I'm going to go do these things that I want to do. And I'm going to listen to the fear and the doubts and the limitations that come up in the pursuit of that thing, because that's what I need to work on. So one of the most powerful things that you can do is like, just go do it. Hire the coach, start the business, move to the city, tell the person that you love them, whatever it may be. Do it and listen to what doubts, what fears, what limitations come up, because that's literally your subconscious mind and the universe and your soul giving you exactly what you need to be able to heal those things and then take it to the next level. 8th thing that I've learned is that what gets you to one level of your life will not get you to the next. So back in, I'd say, end of 2020, beginning of 2021, this was one of the biggest realizations that I had, was that what got me to where I was at that time. So at that time, I had just hit my first $100,000 in business. I had hustled my ass off. I grinded. I worked endlessly. I was like in such a like toxic masculine operating system. And when I say masculine, I mean the masculine energy. I don't mean like masculine in terms of like a dude. I was like very much so in toxic masculine energy because I felt like I needed to prove myself in some sort of capacity. And if I worked hard enough, then I could quote unquote prove myself. And that wasn't true whatsoever. And what I realized during that period of my life was that what got me there wasn't going to get me any further. It wasn't going to get me to having the life of my dreams. It wasn't going to get me to creating a life of freedom. It was only going to get me to a place of more burnout and exhaustion. And so what I've now known as like a repeat in pattern over and over again is that what gets me to one level of my life does not get me to the next one. It requires some sort of shift. It requires some sort of change. And that's typically energetic, especially for me. And I can imagine for all of you as well that are listening, that shift is typically energetic. It's some sort of energy shift that you are required to go through in order to get to that next level of your life. So that is number 8. Number 9 is the things that make you weird are actually your greatest assets. Oh my God, am I a weirdo? And I used to feel so like shameful about being weird. I used to have like all of these weird quirks that I just like would hide and like
mute and almost numb out because I wanted to fit in, because I based my validation, or I based my worth on the validation that I received from other people. But your girl's a weirdo. And since embracing that weirdness and even like letting y'all see that weirdness over on Instagram or like some of these podcast episodes, oh my gosh, it's my greatest asset. It's the thing that connects me deeper to the people in my life. It's the thing that reminds people that they're not alone, that they don't have to be perfect in order to get what they want. Like, oh my gosh, how freeing. So whatever makes you weird is your greatest asset. It's your greatest asset. So own your weirdness. 10th thing that I've learned is that money just amplifies what's ever on the inside. So one of the biggest like limiting beliefs, misconceptions that we have in our society, or that a lot of people have in our society, is that money makes you something. When in reality, money doesn't make you anything. So for example, growing up, I believed that like money made you greedy. Money made you selfish. Money made you like snobby. Because I knew people that had money that I perceived in that way. But the reality is that money just amplifies what's ever on the inside. So as I've received money in my life, I've just become a radder version of Kat because I'm pretty cool. When you receive money, you're just going to become more you. You're just going to have your insides amplified even more. So really recognizing like money doesn't make you anything. It doesn't make you greedy. It doesn't make you snobby. It doesn't make you entitled. It doesn't make you any of these false perceptions that money has been given from people in our society. Money literally just amplifies what's on the inside for you. So if your insides are good, it's going to amplify the good, which is awesome. The world needs more of that. The 11th thing that I have learned is that trying to convince people that you are right will cost you your peace. I remember the time in my life that I used to try and convince people that I was right. And like, I got this high off of trying to convince people that I was right, or like making people know that I was right. I literally don't care. I don't care whatsoever anymore. Like, y'all can listen to this podcast and be like, Kat's telling me a bunch of shit, and I wouldn't care, because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility to convince you of what is true for you, because I would never be able to tell you what is true for you. You can only tell yourself what is true for yourself. And what is true for me doesn't need to be true for anybody else. I was having this conversation the other day where people are talking about, well, as a leader, don't you feel like it's your responsibility to like tell people what is right and what is wrong? And I was like, no, absolutely not. Like, most people in my life from growing up, they don't understand what I'm doing. They don't understand these teachings. They don't understand the life that I've created for myself. They don't understand why I am the way that I am now. And I don't need to convince anybody, because that would cost me my peace, one. Two, like, nobody needs to agree with me except for me, because this is my life. So that is the 11th thing that I have learned, that trying to convince people that you are right will cost you your peace. 12th thing is that community is everything. Finding those people that get you, finding those people that see you, finding those people that make you feel safe. That's everything. One of the things that I struggled with so much around like year 2, beginning of year 3 in starting my business was that I did not have a community, like a solid community of people that understood me and saw me and recognized this version of Kat. I still had a lot of friendships, but they were friendships that no longer were seeing me in the way that I was, because they were still seeing me for who I was prior to starting all of this. And I also was in this place where I was like, okay, well, if I don't have a community, then like I'm just going to do all of this shit on my own and like, yeah, do it anyways. And ultimately I got to this place where I had manifested a fuck ton of money. I had manifested
the dream apartment. I had manifested international travel. I had manifested tons of success. And it was almost like being at the top of the mountain, but having absolutely nobody to look at the view with. And that felt heartbreaking. And so since then, being able to make community my number one priority, not only has it made me feel more connected and more seen and more understood, but it's also like amplified those other things that I was already doing. I'm just not doing them alone anymore. And so community is absolutely everything to me. 13th thing that I have learned is that taking care of your physical health is just as important as taking care of your mental health. So when I first started my intentional manifestation journey, I literally did not think that my physical health played into manifestation whatsoever. I thought it was all about my mental health and my emotional health. So I poured everything into my mental and emotional health, as well as like building my business. And I got to this place back in like super early, it was late 2021, early 2022, where I was experiencing like intense brain fog, chronic fatigue, chronic acne, like so tired that I would sleep like 11 hours and then wake up, only be able to operate for a few hours, then need to go back to bed because I wasn't taking care of my physical health. And during that period of time, absolutely, I was maintaining like as great of a mindset and a great as emotional state as I possibly could, but ultimately like my physical health was impacting my manifestations. And as soon as I made my physical health the priority, that actually helped my mental and emotional health so much more than what I was doing before. So your physical health is literally just as, if not more important than taking care of your mental health, because by taking care of your physical health, it's actually just going to help your mental health. That's something that's not talked about enough. And I think it's because in our society, we like to like break things up into compartments and not see things as like holistic, like whole one. But when you take care of your physical health, that quite literally impacts your mental health in such a profound way. That sends the feel-good chemicals to your brain. That sends the different hormones and things that you need to feel emotionally stable, to feel mentally stable. And from that point, then also doing the mental and emotional work takes you to the next level. But we forget that the body is the vehicle that's actually like needing to be taken care of in order to have proper and optimal function in your mental and emotional health. So that's been one of my biggest lessons over the past few years. 14th lesson is that no one and no thing has the power to make you feel some type of way. Only you have that power. This was a huge one for me because I used to love playing the victim. Ooh, yeah. I loved playing the victim so much because I got attention for it. And I craved attention and validation so deeply that it felt subconsciously better to me to be a victim that would receive attention, even though it was like, oh, poor cat, or like, oh my God, let us help you, than to take ownership over my life and over the fact that nobody and no thing can make you feel some type of way. Only you have that power. So once I realized that, I no longer could point the finger outwards and say, oh, well, he made me feel this way, or this thing is making me feel this way. It's like, no, it's not, because you create meaning for your life. Everything is inherently neutral and you are creating the meaning. So you can create the meaning of he is making me feel that way, or they are making me feel that way, or she is making me feel that way, or this thing is making me feel this way. Or you can turn the finger back around and be like, actually, I have the power. I choose. And I'm choosing a different story than this. And if it is making me feel this type of way, like, let me understand myself deeper and why I'm assigning that meaning or why that trigger's coming up inside of me. Because that's so much more empowering than pointing the finger outwards and outsourcing your power. 15th thing that I have learned is that visualization is just the grown-up version of imagination. Guys, that's all that it is. It's so funny. I was having this conversation with my friend AJ, which you guys heard on the podcast, on the last podcast episode. But
Imagination is literally what visualization is. But somewhere along the line, as adults, we needed to like make it feel a little more serious, to like take ourselves seriously within the process of it. But it's like we all have an imagination. As a kid, your 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old self had an imagination. And that's all that you're doing with visualization as an adult. You're just tapping back into that younger version of yourself. You're just tapping back into that spirit, and you're using that spirit to carry you forward and create the life that you want. So go be a kid again and use your imagination. 16th thing that I've learned is that if it makes you happy, it doesn't matter if anyone else understands it. And I'm going to leave it at that. That one doesn't need any explanation. If it makes you happy, it doesn't need to make sense to anyone else. Period. 17th thing that I've learned is that you can only meet someone as deeply as you've met yourself. Oof, this is a hard one. This was a hard one for me to learn, because back when I was in my late teens, early 20s, every single relationship that I had with a man lacked intimacy, lacked vulnerability, lacked depth. And I'm not talking about intimacy in the way of like physical connection. That's all it was, if we're being honest. But there was no intimacy in terms of connection. There was no depth in the connection. And I realized that's because I was so fearful to meet myself in that same sort of way. People can only meet you as deeply as you've met yourself. So if you crave deep, intimate, personal relationships, then dig deep. Go deep with yourself. I promise you, you have the power to do it. The 18th thing that I've learned is that nothing in life is a coincidence or a mistake. One of the things, so growing up, there were so many what I at the time would have called coincidences. Like me and my mom would be listening to songs that had lyrics that then like played out in our lives almost seconds later. Or there were like moments where I would think about somebody and then that person would randomly show up, or whatever it may be. At the time, I thought that that was a coincidence, but literally nothing in life is a coincidence. Everything is feedback. Your energy is constantly being emitted out into the quantum field, being emitted out into the universe, and you are constantly being fed feedback from your energy. So everything that you are experiencing in your life is a byproduct of your energy, and therefore nothing in life is a coincidence. So these really cool, these really juicy moments where you're experiencing some sort of what feels like a coincidence, that is a synchronicity. That is happening on purpose. That is guidance from the universe and from the divinity within you that you're on the right track, or that your energy is being received. And y'all, that's been one of the coolest things for me. The amount of just like daily synchronicities at this point. It's so fun. So fun. But with that, 19th thing that I've learned is that listening to Taylor Swift can fix just about anything. Literally anything. I've known this since I was like a 13-year-old, and I'm damn well certain that this will be true until the day that I die. Listening to Taylor Swift can fix just about anything. 20th thing that I've learned is that life is too short to hold grudges. I used to hold grudges. Ugh, gross. I used to hold grudges, and there's been so many moments in my life where I have witnessed close people to me lose someone, or I've witnessed people that I don't know that well lose someone, and it has just like shaken me to my core to recognize and realize that like life is too short to hold grudges. We think we have enough time to hold grudges. We don't. We don't have enough time to hold grudges. There's nothing in this life worth holding a grudge for. And I'm not saying you need to go out and like forgive every single person that's ever done you wrong and like be best buddies with them. But it's like, forgive them so you can forgive yourself. Forgive them so that you can let go.
carrying and holding on to that grudge isn't doing anything for you. It's doing absolutely nothing for you vibrationally. So let it go. Life is too short to hold that grudge, not only for that person, but also for you, mainly for you. You don't need to carry that anymore. Let it go. 21st thing that I've learned, number 21, is that intention is your superpower. And I'm not even going to dive into this one because y'all listen to the podcast. Y'all hear me talk about this all the time. Intention is your superpower. Intention is your GPS. Intention is what gets you there. So be intentional. Number 22 is avoid things that give you a false sense of accomplishment. This is a big one. This is especially a big one in the world of personal development. So there's so many things that we can do that give us a false sense of accomplishment. One of the biggest things that I've recognized for myself over the past few years especially, but also prior to that, is that when I had a true desire, like a heartfelt desire, there would be these little things that would pop up like, oh, Kat, you should clean the dishes or clean the kitchen. You should do the laundry. You should call that friend. Oh, you should text that person. Oh, you suddenly need to go to the grocery store, whatever it may be. These things that give you a false sense of accomplishment and actually pull you further away from getting what you want. Avoid those things. Obviously, you have to clean the kitchen, do the dishes, so on and so forth, but set yourself up for success so that you can actually dive into those things that is going to bring you a true sense of accomplishment. Those things that are soul-filling. Those things that you know you are here for and you are meant to experience in this lifetime. Those are going to be the things that fill you up to the brim. So prioritize those things over the things that give you a false sense of accomplishment. 23rd thing that I've learned is that there is so much more nuance to everything in life than people like to tell you there is. This is one of me and my best friend Vivi. We love to talk about this because people love to see things very, very black and white. I love the nuance. I love the gray space. I love the fact that anything and everything could be true for any given situation. And I think it's actually very toxic and harmful that our society doesn't give nuance to a lot of things. It gives us this black or white where it's like, okay, you're either conservative or liberal. You're either a city person or a country person. You're either really good at math or really good at art. It's like, come on, y'all. Let's finally recognize the nuance. Nuance is everywhere. Nuance is in everything. It also just when we think about the world in a black and white way, we're not considering the fact that everything is energy. And if everything is energy, then everything can exist in infinite different ways. And therefore, there's no such thing as black and white. There's just a bunch of gray space. There's just a bunch of nuance. Quantum physics dives deep into that. And we don't have time to talk about quantum physics today. But I love nuance. So that is the 23rd thing that I've learned, is that there is so much more nuance to everything in life than people like to tell you that there is. Even what I'm talking about here, there's so much nuance in this. You can receive this in whatever way you're going to receive it, and there's still nuance. So that's the fun and funny thing. And with that being said, we're going to dive into some nuance, which feels contradictory. But 24th thing that I've learned is that it's easier to be 100% committed to something than it is to be 99% committed to something. So the reason that I say that this is contradictory is because we were just talking about the black and white, where it's either this or that. I found for myself, when it comes to being committed to some sort of goal that I have, it's easier to be 100% committed to it than it is to be 99%, because that 1% of gray space leaves a lot of question. So obviously, yes, in life, there's a ton of nuance. There's nuance in everything and anything. When it comes specifically to me for having goals, when it comes to me for pursuing something or wanting some sort of lifestyle shift, it's easier for me to be 100% committed to it than it is to be 99% committed to it. And so, example for this, when I decided that I wanted to start my business, it was easier for me to say there is no plan B. There is absolutely no plan B. There is no other option than this working. There is no other option than this being successful. There's no other option than this being wildly successful, because if I had 1% gray space with that, there would have been questioning. There would have been room for the excuses, the limiting beliefs, the considerations to come up to the surface and for me to actually consider them. Versus the limiting beliefs that have come up to the surface, I'm like, oh, well, that doesn't work with my 100% commitment to the fact that this is my thing. So therefore, no. Same with when I made the decision to eliminate alcohol from my life. One of the questions that I've been asked over the past few years since eliminating alcohol from my life is that, like, am I going to drink again someday? And I think the answer is no, because when I made that decision, I was 100% committed to the fact that I was eliminating alcohol from my life. If there's ever a day that that doesn't feel like the truth, then cool. But having like 99% commitment to that, and that 1% of like, oh, well, do I drink on holidays? Do I drink on special occasions? It's like, that feels like too much work. That feels like too much brain power being released towards something that doesn't need to be thought about at all, because it doesn't enhance my life in any sort of capacity. So therefore, I'm 100% committed to having an alcohol-free lifestyle. So I guess for you guys, what I would say for this is like, look at those things in your life where it's like, this would better and benefit my life if I was 100% committed to it, and I'm just 100% committing to it. And then if those fear, those doubts, those limitations, whatever it may be, want to come up to the surface, you can look and be like, well, this doesn't fit into the 100% commitment plan. So therefore, I'm not even considering this. Like if you were wanting to pursue, let's say, going into acting or going into some sort of like creative arts, it's like, okay, 100% commitment to that. You are that person now. Like there's no if and or buts. There's no plan B. You're just doing that. That feels a lot easier than being like, oh, well, maybe I'm this person, maybe I'm not. It all comes down to identity. When you're 100% committed to something, that means you are the embodiment and identifying as that person. And for another example, so when I started my business, before I had even started the business, I had made this commitment to myself that I was never going to work for somebody else again, and that I was going 100% into this. And I started to identify as the business owner, as the coach, before that was actually my reality and before there was an actual LLC. So being 100% committed to those things that better your life is so much easier than being 99% committed to it, because that still leaves that wiggle room for the questions, for the doubts, for the excuses, for the considerations to come up to the surface. 25th thing that I've learned is that your higher self, at least in my opinion, is just your inner child disguised as a divine concept. So oftentimes we look at the higher self and we think of it as this like higher, greater, better, holier than thou version of self. Not holier than thou in the way of like, oh, I'm better than everybody, but like we put our higher selves on the pedestal when in reality, it's literally just getting back to being your inner child. It's just getting back to those soul truths that you knew when you entered into this human body. I know for myself, from like the moment that I was born, like as soon as I have conscious memory, I knew I was going to be somebody. Like I knew I was meant for big things. I knew that I was here to make an impact. I knew that I was meant to be like known and seen. And somewhere along the line, I got disconnected from that. And then when I got reconnected to it, I saw it as my higher self. But the reality is that my inner child has always been my higher self. She's always known. That shit has been on lock for her since day one. So you returning back home to your inner child is actually also you stepping into and becoming your higher self. And as you can see it as that, then you will be led to the different people, circumstances, opportunities that you want and need to get you to the next level of your life and manifesting what is ultimately for you on your path, what your soul came into this human body to do in the first place.
26th thing that I've learned, and y'all know it all too well if you've been part of my journey on the No Bullshit Manifestation Show, is that it's okay to change your mind. I have almost moved to foreign countries twice in the past few years and backed out because it's okay to change your mind. It's okay for you to think you want something, get that thing, and then realize that you actually don't. It's okay for you to start something and be like, oh yeah, no, this actually isn't it. It's okay if you commit to an idea and then you're like, oh, wait, that wasn't actually what I wanted. That's what my ego wanted or what I thought I wanted at that time, whatever it may be. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay for you to start to pursue something and then stop. It's okay for you to be in a relationship that is everything you wanted it to be and then realize that you're no longer fulfilled within it. It's okay to change your mind. You're supposed to change your mind. I remember when I was 18 years old, my mom said to me, Kitty, don't make any serious decisions in your 20s because you're going to change your mind so many times that you will not want those same things that you decided on early on. And I was like, no way, she's wrong. I know everything that I want, blah, blah, blah. Thank you, mommy. Thank you. Shout out Jilly Kozad. Oh my gosh, is she right? I have changed my mind so many times. I have expanded, I have grown, and through that, there have been new thoughts and new ideas and new realizations that have led me to changing my mind. Back at the time when she told me that, I thought I was going to be married by the age of 22 or 23. I thought I was going to have a baby by the age of 24. And I thought that like I was going to be like fully locked into a career path, into a home, into like everything at that point. And if that's your path, good for you. If you love your path, good for you. That was not my path. My path is supposed to be this wild, crazy path of me experiencing things and doing new things and changing my mind and all of those things to be who I am and where I am today and doing what I'm doing in the world. And who I was when she told me that, who I was when I was 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 6 months ago, 6 weeks ago, 6 days ago, they're all different versions of Kat. Because I've changed my mind, I've grown, I've evolved, I've expanded, and I truly believe that that's what life is all about. So it's okay to change your mind. 27th thing that I've learned is that the greatest act of rebellion is getting to know yourself independent of who the world told you you are. The greatest thing that you can do, the biggest like fuck you that you can give to the doubters, the non-believers, the haters, the people that have told you otherwise. And like, yeah, we can flip them off, but then also like, hey, it's okay. Like, whatever, love and light. But the greatest act of rebellion is you knowing yourself independent of who the world told you you are. When I was in high school, I had a group of girls tell me that I was going to be the one that got pregnant and dropped out and like ruined her life. When I was growing up, I was told that I was the fat kid. When I was working in the food and beverage industry, I was told that I was wasting my smarts and that was all that I was ever going to do with my life if I didn't go back and get a college degree. When I first started my business, I was told that I was a cult leader. When I could go on and on. But ultimately, the story that I am telling here is that you knowing yourself independent of who the world told you you are and choosing who you are independent of the stories that you've been told you're going to equate to is the greatest act of rebellion. Go do it. You owe it to yourself to know yourself independent of what the world has told you you will be or what you are meant for. You're meant for far greater things than that, and you know that. So, the last thing that I have learned, and this is something that I've really, really learned over this past year of life. Number 28 is let people love you because they really, really want to. People really, really want to love you. People really, really want to love me. I was so scared to let love in for such a long time because I was so hurt by things that I loved growing up, and by, like I said earlier, meeting myself, loving myself, and then opening back up to let people love me. God, people really loved me. Like, I could get emotional saying this because one of my biggest limiting beliefs I've had throughout my life is that people don't like me, because I had so many bullies, so many hard things happen where it felt like people didn't like me, and truly, like, yeah, said they didn't like me. But to see how loved I am by you guys, the messages that I get over on Instagram about the podcast and what the podcast has done for you, they change my life every single time I receive one of those messages. So thank you to every single one of you who's ever sent one. And to all of my friends that are potentially listening to this podcast episode, thank you for loving me. Thank you for supporting me. If my mom is listening to this podcast episode, Mommy, thank you for loving me. Thank you for supporting me. I know my dad isn't listening, but I know he loves me and supports me anyways. Uncle Pete, if you are listening to this one, thank you for loving me. Thank you for supporting me. But seriously, I'm so loved. And I didn't know that for such a long time. And I'm so, so grateful to know that now. And so that is what I have learned over the past 28 years of life. I'm so grateful for another year. I'm so grateful to be here. This life is genuinely greater than anything I could have ever imagined for myself. And I'm crying tears of gratitude again. I've cried so many times this week, just recognizing how grateful I am for this life. And I know that if you're listening to the No Bullshit Manifestation Show, you're made for a life that you're literally crying over because you're so grateful for it as well. And I'm so thankful that you've chosen my show to tune into and listen to. Genuinely, it means the absolute world to me. So thank you for another trip around the sun. Thank you for being here and listening to the show. Thank you for connecting with me. This is the greatest gift of my entire life. And if you want to connect with me more, you can come follow me over on Instagram. My handle is @CatCozadCoaching. I would love to connect with you. I would love to know what you have thought of the show, what's helped you, what you want to hear more of. That's what I'm bringing to you in this 28th year, is just more of that, more of like actual deep connection, because I love you guys just as much as you potentially love me. Some of y'all tell me that you fangirl over me. I fangirl over you. Like, come on. I fangirl over you. So I'm going to stop rambling, but thank you, thank you, thank you. Happy 28 years to me. This is just the beginning. Let's fucking go. And I'll chat with you on the next podcast episode.
Hey, real quick before you go, I have something for you. If you are loving the No Bullshit Manifestation Show and you're always wanting to expand and calibrate your nervous system for greater levels of wealth, then I've created the perfect nervous system expansion meditation for you. This meditation will take you through the process that I use to start to call in greater levels of wealth into my life and calibrate your nervous system for more money moving forward. All you have to do to claim this meditation is leave a review for the No Bullshit Manifestation Show on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify. Take a screenshot of your review and send it to me via email, which is hello@catcozad.com. Once I get your email with the screenshot of the review, I will send you the link to claim your nervous system expansion meditation for money manifestation. You can also find these instructions down below in the show notes. But with that, that's all that I have for you, and I am sending you my love. I'll chat with you on the next podcast.